Hello, let's think about the overall economy. The circular flow diagram is used to describe the aggregate economy and to understand our measure of total economic activity, the gross domestic product, or GDP. The circular flow diagram shows how various economic agents are related to each other through different markets, how firms and households are related to each other through the markets of goods and the market for labor. The circular flow diagram also helps us illustrate the calculation of GDP. This is important because GDP is often used to judge how well or how poorly an economy is doing. In general, GDP measures two things at the same time: total income of everyone within the nation's borders and total expenditures on goods and services produced within the nation's borders. This makes sense because one person's expenditures is another person's income. Let's explore the circular flow diagram a little bit. Here we have, again, two economic entities, firms and households, and they're related to each other through the market for labor and the market for goods and services. The firms will hire workers through the market for labor, and they will pay them income, Y. Households would take that money and spend it on goods and services produced by the firms, household expenditures or consumption. Clearly here we have that income is equal to consumption. Income is equal to expenditures. We can make this a little bit more interesting by adding a market for capital. Here we have added the market for capital. Now, again, we have that the firms are paying consumers an income, Y. Consumers are spending a lot of money on goods and services, C. But here, the households are also saving some money in the market for capital. The firm is using that money, or they're borrowing money from the capital markets to make investment. Investments are expenditures on goods and services that are not used today, but rather they're used in the future to produce more goods and services. Once again, we have that income must equal expenditures, which in this case is consumption plus investment. This makes sense because investment here will have to be equal to savings by the household. Once again, we can make it a little bit more interesting. Now we add another economic entity, the government. Now we have that the government also interact with firms and households in these markets. In this diagram, in this circular flow diagram, I have shown the following. Firms are once again paying workers an income by hiring them in the market for labor. Households are spending that money on goods and services, or they are saving the money in the capital markets. But households also now are paying taxes to the government. The firms do several things. One, of course, they hire workers and they sell goods and services, but they also borrow money in the capital markets to make investments, and the government is asking them to pay taxes to them as well. And here we have that the government takes the tax revenue from households and from firms, and they spend that in the market for goods and services. What we have now is, once again, that income will have to equal expenditures, which is now C plus I plus G. We can see that I, of course, should be equal to the savings, and government expenditures should hopefully be equal to household taxes plus firm taxes. An interesting thing here is that if the government is running a budget deficit, or a budget surplus for that matter, then G will not be equal to tax revenue. And what the government then will have to do is probably borrow money in the capital market. So if that was the case, then savings will be greater than investment. And this is what we call crowding out. That is, if the government have to borrow money in the capital market, then there is less capital available for firms, and therefore they will not be able to make as many private investment projects as we would normally have. So government deficits crowds out private investment, and that makes us, it could make us grow a little bit slower. It depends, of course, on how the money is spent by the government. If the government is spending all that borrowed money on infrastructure and schools and roads and other public infrastructure projects, then it actually could be a good thing to do. Okay, let's go really crazy. Let's add a foreign sector as well. Now we have that the firms are hiring workers in a labor market, paying them an income. Now the firms are spending that money on consumption for goods and services produced in the by the domestic firms. They're paying taxes to the government. They are saving money in the capital market, and they are buying goods and services from the foreign markets. That's imports. As usual, the firms are borrowing money in the capital markets to make investment projects. They are paying taxes to the government. And of course, they're getting revenue from the market from goods and services. All the things they're selling in the market for goods and services. But now, some of the expenditures on domestically produced goods and services are actually coming from foreigners. And that's what we call exports. And then again, the government collects revenue from the households and from the firms, and they are taking that money and spending it on goods and services. All right, so now we have a very complicated thing, but we still have to have income equal expenditures. So now we take consumption, but now they don't spend all of their consumption or expenditures on domestically produced goods. So we have to subtract out what they buy from imports or from foreign produced goods and services. And then we add investment expenditures plus the government expenditures, and we have to also add the expenditures on domestically produced goods and services that foreign entities are buying. Or if we were to rewrite that, then we have C plus I plus G plus X minus M. This is our standard national income accounting identity, and that one always have to be true. We could talk about a lot of different things in terms of this equation, but let's not think about that right now. So that's our overview of the overall economy and how we can use the circular flow diagram to describe it, as well as how we can use it to figure out what GDP is, either using the income approach or the expenditure approach. Thank you. Okay, here we have our national income accounting identity. It's always true by definition. And we can look at this one. One interesting way to explore this identity is to take C and G and I and move it over to the other side. So we're leaving exports minus imports by itself on the right-hand side of the identity sign. And then we notice here that national saving is the difference between what we produce and what we consume. And if we take that minus our domestic investment, we can see that has to equal exports minus imports.